In the early 16th century, the Portuguese and Ottoman empires locked into a brutal struggle for control of the Indian Ocean spice trade. At the center of this conflict sat Diu, a port city on the western coast of India that acted as a critical valve for spices flowing toward Ottoman Egypt. The Sultanate of Gujarat controlled Diu, but they faced mounting military pressure from the Mughals, a dominant, rapidly expanding Islamic empire in the Indian subcontinent. Desperate for protection, Sultan Bahadur Shah signed the 1534 Treaty of Bassein, explicitly ceding Diu to the Portuguese in exchange for their military support. Bahadur Shah quickly regretted allowing a foreign power to build a stone footprint in his territory. In 1537, he boarded a Portuguese vessel to negotiate their withdrawal. The talks broke down into sudden violence, and the Sultan plunged into the ocean, drowning under suspicious circumstances. The Ottomans seized on the Sultan's death as a casus belli, a formal, legal justification to declare war. They immediately organized a massive naval expedition to sail across the ocean and crush Portuguese influence in India once and for all. This chart compares the severe asymmetry of the opposing forces. The Ottoman governor Hadim Suleiman Pasha and Gujarati commander Qajar Safar arrived with a combined force of over 22,000 troops. Waiting inside the fort was Portuguese captain Antonio da Silveira, commanding exactly 600 men. Outnumbered nearly 40-1, the survival of the Portuguese Empire in India relied entirely on the engineering of a single, newly built fortress. The Ottoman Armada caught the Portuguese by surprise when they arrived in September 1538. 80 ships dropped anchor off the coast of Diu and immediately unleashed a terrifying bombardment, pounding the defenders with 130 heavy cannons. The attackers scored an early tactical victory in the water. They focused their firepower on the Vila dos Rumes, a small Portuguese sea fort, blasting it until the local commander was forced to surrender. But the main Diu fort held its ground. The Portuguese had constructed the walls using modern European designs, featuring solid, heavily angled stone that deflected direct artillery strikes rather than crumbling under their weight. The island's natural geography actively worked against the attackers. The narrow waterways separating Diu from the mainland prevented the massive Ottoman galleys from lining up side by side, making it impossible to bring their full naval broadsides to bear on the walls. The advanced architectural technology of the fort effectively neutralized both the Ottomans' overwhelming numerical superiority and their heavy artillery. Frustrated by the impenetrable walls, the Ottoman janissaries, the elite, highly trained infantry units of the Sultan's army, turned their aggression on the abandoned civilian city of Diu, senselessly ransacking the homes of their own allies. The local Gujarati nobility watched their city burn. Realizing that Ottoman imperial ambitions were just as dangerous to their sovereignty as the Portuguese, the nobles abruptly cut off all supply lines to the besieging army. Without food deliveries from the mainland, starvation spread rapidly through the Ottoman camp. Suleiman Pasha now faced a strict ticking clock to capture the fortress before his own army collapsed from hunger. On October 31st, Suleiman Pasha ordered a desperate final assault. 14,000 Ottoman and Gujarati troops rushed the fortress walls through thick banks of cannon smoke. Inside, the Portuguese garrison was decimated. Only 40 standing soldiers remained to fight, forcing local civilians and women to take up arms and actively fight on the ramparts to hold the line. The attacking troops successfully breached the ramparts and planted their banners over the fort. But in their chaotic haste to crush the final defenders, the attackers were shredded by friendly fire from their own heavy artillery. The coalition had the numbers to break the fort, but without food from the mainland or trust between the commanders, their sheer size had become their greatest liability. The siege ground to a halt. On November 5th, a few small Portuguese supply ships appeared on the horizon, triggering immediate panic within the exhausted and starving Ottoman camp. Suleiman Pasha made a fatal miscalculation. He mistook these minor supply ships for the vanguard of the Goa fleet, the primary heavily armed Portuguese naval force in India, and ordered an immediate retreat. The Ottomans hastily embarked for Yemen, leaving 1,200 dead soldiers behind. Seeing his allies flee, Qajar Safar torched his own camp and abandoned the island entirely. This diagram shows the strategic fallout of the retreat. The Ottomans permanently fractured their Gujarati alliance and halted their naval expansion into India, while simultaneously thickening and fortifying their defensive positions back in the Red Sea and Yemen. The Portuguese secured an unchecked monopoly over western Indian ports. They would retain the colony of Diu for over 400 years, until its annexation by India in 1961. Suleiman Pasha never sent another armada to India. By holding a single stone fortress against 40-to-1 odds, the Portuguese ensured that the most lucrative trade routes in the world would remain under their control for the next century.